His family always chalked his tales up to just an old man's story. Until one Thanksgiving he told a story and one of his grandsons noticed something that nobody ever noticed before, and it made him a believer. It also sent chills down his spine as he thought, maybe Grandpa's story is true. Everyone in our family knows our grandpa's Wendigo story. He's told it to me since I was a little kid. As a kid, I loved the story. Then as a teen, I didn't believe it was real and that it was just Grandpa telling stories. But now that I'm an adult, I'm not so sure again if this story doesn't have some merit. Last week at Thanksgiving, Grandpa started telling his story again. This time was different, however. I noticed things I've never thought to look for before. His eyes were serious. His face went pale when he got to the quote-unquote good parts, and I saw goosebumps come and go on his arms through the entire story. He definitely saw something, and it changed the rest of his life. And here is his story. When I was 19, I worked cattle on a large piece of land near the Crow Indian Reservation over by Yellowstone. I worked with an older, rough-looking man that was tough as nails with a pull-yourself-up-by-the-boots attitude, because nobody's coming to save you. I was his third hand in the last 6 months. I asked the old man why he was going through hands so fast. I could see the hesitation on his face before he said, "You ain't got the guts to know the truth." Thinking back now, that old man knew exactly what he was doing. Telling a 19-year-old kid with something to prove that he doesn't have what it takes is exactly how you motivate them to stick around to prove you wrong. I answered him, "Yes, I do. I'm tougher than any of your previous hands." "Is that so?" the old man responded. "Well, then grab a seat, and I'll tell you what's been going on. But don't you go yellow on me and scamper off with your tail between your legs, you hear?" We sat next to the fire, and the old man began telling me how his first hand disappeared one night, left his horse and all of his belongings. The old man looked for him for 2 days, chalked it up to he just must have scampered straight off. And the second man came back into camp one night ghost white, shaking in his boots, packed up his stuff on the horse and left without ever saying a word, and never returned. "I reckon it's that damn Wendigo," said the old man. Hesitantly, I replied, "What's a Wendigo?" The old man's face went cold. He said, "This may sound crazy, but you'll be doing yourself a damn good favor to take everything I'm about to say seriously. You understand, boy?" I nodded, with what I'm sure was a terrified look on my face. I spoke with one of the medicine men over on the reservation. They call them Wendigos. They are said to be old Indian medicine men who made deals with evil spirits to obtain the ability to shapeshift, among other things. These medicine men then became a hideous creature. Accounts range from 8 to 15 foot tall, glowing coal red eyes, a long tongue, and they resemble a deer or an elk with antlers. The limbs are all oddly shaped, and it can walk on 2 legs. They say you'll often smell rotten flesh if one is near, because its own body is in a perpetual state of decomposition as one of the punishments for practicing dark magic. I was stunned. He was serious. All I could get out was, "Have you ever seen one?" He nodded slowly. "I had one terrorize me and the cattle a while back. That medicine man helped me deal with it, or so I thought." But that's all he would say. He refused to revisit the story. I was visibly shaken, but at the same time held some disbelief. Giant, evil, rotting deer walking on 2 legs? There has to be an explanation. But those feelings of doubt, they left me on the 3rd night out with the cattle. We covered a huge area of land, and often at night, to keep a better watch, the old man and I set up 2 separate camps on opposite ends of the herd, which was the case this night. It was just after dark. The cows were starting to quiet down, and I had just finished supper when I noticed all the cows almost simultaneously went quiet. They all started shifting, getting up and moving nervously away from the wood line. I stood up and grabbed my pistol. It was likely either cow thieves or a critter looking to snatch a calf. I walked over to where the cows were before they started moving off and looked into the woods the best I could. I had half a moon, but it was pitch dark once you tried to look inside the wood line. Then the smell hit me. Putrid, rotting flesh. At first I thought to myself, I'm gonna have to come back to the woods in the morning and make sure it's not one of my cattle. Then I remembered the old man's story, and a chill ran down my spine. I turned to head back to camp and heard a single loud branch snap. I whipped around and was met with glowing, coal red eyes looking at me from the timber. Real quick, if you're a fan of how we tell cryptid stories and true scary stories in an immersive format, well, that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So please drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and turn notifications on so you don't miss the next one. All these steps help a small channel like Dark Secrets so much, and we deeply appreciate it. Now let's get back to that story. Those red eyes were like burning coals. I remember gripping my pistol so tight my hand was shaking, but I was paralyzed. I couldn't move, I was so scared. The eyes began to move and get larger. Was it coming towards me? Indeed it was. As it slowly emerged from the tree line into the dim half-moon's light, I saw it. A deformed, hideous creature, resembling a deer, standing on two legs. Its front legs, or arms, I don't know what to call them, had huge, nasty claws. It started moving slowly towards me. One step, then two, and three. It disturbed me how unnatural this thing's movements were. Then those steps got faster. 4, 5, 6, 7. That's when I snapped out of it and raised my pistol. I fired 5 of my 6 shots. I watched dust and flesh come off this thing as each bullet hit, but it never reacted. Like I did nothing at all. And now it was at a full run, with the most horrifying movement. I steadied my aim and fired my last bullet and hit it square in the head. It staggered to a stop and just started shaking its head like it was annoyed. I used that moment to run back to camp. I stumbled into camp and went straight to my saddlebag for more ammo. I could see the glowing red eyes slowly making their way towards me. I dropped 3 or 4 rounds before I could get all 6 rounds loaded back into my pistol. After I got the last round in, I looked up, but I couldn't see it. My mind began to race. That was a wendigo, or a wendigo. I don't remember how to say it now. I shot it 6 times, once in the head, and it didn't care. About that time, I heard hooves coming fast. The old man heard my gunshots and rode over from his camp. "What's wrong? What happened?" The old man, seeing my face, was ghost white. My knuckles were still white too from gripping my pistol so hard. He looked at me again with a softer voice and said, "Son, you're safe. What did you see?" When I began to speak, my throat was tight. It was difficult to explain what happened, as if explaining it was just confirming it to myself that it was real. After telling him the story, the old man said he would stay the rest of the night with me, and the next morning we were going to head to the medicine man. In all my years of life, I never remember being more happy to see the sun than that next morning. We ate breakfast, saddled our horses, and headed off to see this Indian man the old man's been talking about. Once we arrived, the old man talked to a few people of the tribe before motioning me over to a tent. Inside was feathers and odd shapes made out of sticks, drawings, and all kinds of herbs and plants. The old man was straight to the point. "My hand here had a close call with a wendigo last night." The medicine man looked at me and said, "Tell me." After telling him my story, he sat for a moment in thought before saying, "You have definitely been chosen by the wendigo, and it will not stop coming for you." I was stunned, but before I could protest, he pulled out a small pouch that was tied shut. As he handed it to me, he said, "When the wendigo returns, throw this pouch in its direction. Make sure it sees the pouch so it can take it. It will appease the beast. But you must promise me one thing, that you will not open the pouch." "But why can't I?" And the medicine man cut me off. "You must not open the pouch." I nodded, took the pouch. The old man exchanged a few items with the medicine man, I'm assuming as payment for his help, and we set back towards camp. All the way back to camp, I was holding that pouch and I wanted to look inside so bad. I could feel inside was something soft, some material that felt like plants maybe, and something else that was somewhat hard and flexible. The only thing that kept me from opening that pouch was the thought of what if it ruins it by opening it and it don't work anymore. The old man set up camp with me for 3 nights in a row, and we had 3 uneventful nights. The 4th night, the old man said we should split up again. I was terrified, but I wasn't going to let him know that. I still had something to prove. I was just about to drift off when I heard it again. All the cows went quiet and started nervously moving further away from me. I shot up, eyes intently looking for those red eyes. I had my pistol gripped in my left hand and the medicine man's bag in the right. The smell hit me first, that putrid, rotten flesh smell again. My hand tightened on the pouch. I heard movement behind me. I whipped around to see those glowing red eyes moving quickly towards me, unnaturally quick. It caught me off guard again. I was stunned for a moment, not moving while it got closer and closer. I came to my senses and threw the pouch directly at the creature, nearly hitting it. It slowed to a stop and slowly turned its head and looked at the pouch. A moment of fear washed over me. Was this pouch useless, and did I just piss this thing off even more? I watched it take 3 or 4 hideous-looking steps over to the pouch. It picked it up with its hand or claw or whatever that thing was and sniffed it. Then it turned and just walked away. I stayed with the old man the rest of the season and never saw or smelt that Wendigo again. But I barely slept each night, terrified if I went to sleep, I would wake up with it standing over me. On our last day, the old man said, "Well, you proved me wrong. You toughed it out. Maybe I'll see you back next season." I replied full of pride, "Yep, it's going to take more than a little old Wendigo to scare me off." Then I left and never went back. Hey guys, check out our latest Christmas horror story if you got the stomach for it. Or if you want something more this style, check out our latest Bigfoot story. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of this story, and as always, keep an open mind, and I'll see you in the next one.